Welcome back to another episode of Lead Stronger Longer, the podcast that empowers you to lead yourself purposefully, personally, and professionally. I'm your host, Stephana Johnson, and today we're diving deep into a profound quote. This quote is by Krishnamurti. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. This is an important one, especially in today's society. We're coming out of the 2024 Olympics, the things that I observed there. Whoa, that's just what we're seeing in the news. But imagine what's actually going in and around in everyone's lives. And it trickles down from leaders, even when leaders aren't thinking they are leaders. Maybe they're not intentional, but they are actually just showing up and putting themselves out there. We can name the celebrities because unfortunately, celebrities have more leadership power and influence than a lot of actual leaders of companies and organizations. And this is an important thing to keep in mind because I'll say it again, Krishnamurti's quote, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." We're talking mental health, emotional health, physical health, spiritual health, financial health, relationship health. Come on. This is definitely a topic that is important, and we can't leave these things on the table if we want to be leading stronger, longer. As leaders, we have to hold ourselves to the highest standards of ethics. Our integrity has to be impeccable. Integrity means that you are honest with yourself first. And this isn't just in our professional lives, it's in our personal lives. I want to explore this a little bit further in this episode and talk about why this inner work is essential for being a powerhouse leader, especially in today's world where these examples of true leadership are desperately needed. I'm going to reflect a little bit on recent events, such as the 2024 Paris Olympics. We've seen a couple of things. Of course, the opening, it doesn't matter whether you talk about a religion or, and we go into things. The bottom line is that was a spectacular show of low integrity, personally and professionally. And I think that as a result, we are now able to look at some of the things that came out of, I don't know if there's these factors of the phase of trying to shock people. We're out of that now. That used to be the shock factors in the 60s and the 70s, and that whole thing was perpetuated. This is when Krishnamurti came out with that quote in his book in the 60s. And we started to see how there's an underhanded kind of a fume that is going through cultures of low integrity, completely unethical behavior, personally and professionally. And this is where, when I was starting out in the industry of health, psychology, therapy, 30 years ago, some of the things that now are completely norm and actually promoted to be popular were psychological major impairments. And I just find it so interesting that we're now making things normal. That really, in this moment in time, we normalize something, and then the long-term repercussions are not going to be something that we want to have in our society. And only those that are true leaders understand that, because they understand what they're creating today, they are going to see show up in their world tomorrow. And that is in every area. So if we uncover some of this concept with regards to being well adjusted to a flawed society, to a very sick society, to an aberrated society, this does not equate to true health, true success. When we can start to talk about this in a conversation that is meaningful, I think that that's an important step. in terms of leaders maintaining a high ethical standard for themselves and being in integrity, it's always going to come down to themselves, how they exemplify that in their own personal lives, in the qualities that they bring to their relationships, and as well as to their leadership, because everyone's watching that leader, and those small pieces of minor out integrity, minor, we think, right? We call them, oh, it's just a little white lie, or it's just, oh, we'll just, um, if we say things as a leader, let's say in a meeting, and some of the team members know factually that it is not possible to create that, or there are certain things going on, and that leader shows up and says, oh, it's no problem, we've got this, we'll take care of it. Is that wishful thinking, or is that out integrity? And these are things that are worth looking at for yourself as a leader, and understanding that it requires self-discipline to be honest and straight, especially when there are times where you know something's not going to work. One of the books that I think is very worth reading, and it does dive into culture, is Ben Horowitz. His book on, let's pull this up, Ben Horowitz. His book on What You Do is Who You Are is one of the best books on cultural leadership. And he has some excellent stories in that book. I really highly recommend that as my go-to book for this episode. I'll let that pop up in the chat and we'll share that. And then let's just go back to a couple of other things, because I want to talk about how some of these lessons that we can learn from the 2024 Paris Olympics and reflect on that for ourselves. I was noticing the refs. Now, these guys are leaders. Let's, besides the fact of the athletes who are literally leaders, and how many young men and women, girls and boys, are watching these Olympians and observing what's going on. And those, of course, those athletes are leaders. And then you've got the refs. And I had no idea that it was even possible, but you could, buying a ref or buying the win. Who would want to win a gold or even anything when it was bought and it wasn't true? Right there, what kind of culture is then? Then we can just pull the string down on that. If that's how far they've gone, what have they done throughout their lives? And then you can, I mean, immediately it's untrustworthy. So this is an important thing that we need to start stepping into and stepping up to as leaders, and really talking about what high integrity leadership means on teams, for nations, and what the consequences are in the absence of integrity, right? So I encourage you to really reflect on your own leadership qualities. Take some steps toward embodying not only a higher ethic level for yourself and integrity in your daily life, but going back and cleaning up and making up damage when you have created damage. Because there's no question, if you have, it reminds me of this, because I was in Houston for a while. And when I was in Houston, Enron was a huge situation. Jeffrey Skilling, I was working at a club and as a coach there. Some of these folks from Enron were there, and then I was over at Duke Energy working in, I was in the wellness industry, and so focusing on that, I was seeing and hearing and observing what was literally going on during that time in the 90s, and it's just completely, of course, Enron is completely notorious with the corporate fraud and all of that, but how it trickled down with regards to within the culture, and how the illness that resulted from people who did have integrity but didn't know what to do, didn't know how to stand up to that, and then just continuing to hide the performance and just not being transparent. When you think when you get that big that, oh, it's easy to hide that, but that's when it's even the worst and it really explodes. Enron is small compared to the government. Let's look at the government. We can see the absolute corruption. We think, oh, well, it'll never get found out. Oh, you bet it will. You bet it will. It may take a long time to uncover that. But everyone's being impacted. We're all being impacted by that. And that is why this is the time where leaders need to lead stronger and they need to lead longer when they are the ethical ones. I think of Tata Group that was founded in the late 1800s and founded on the principle of trustworthy leadership. And if you go in and you juxtapose that to any of these corporations that are not transparent, they have leadership that are completely out integrity, completely unethical, and some of it's just made okay. It's so interesting how we've gotten to this point of being almost completely backwards, of what's right is now wrong, of what's used to be wrong is now right. It makes no sense at all. We need leaders to step up. We need to shift out of being led by these nameless, faceless. They're not leaders. They're not leaders. I wouldn't even put that as a name on there, but we each need to be leading ourselves first and start shining a light on when we see something going on and we know it's not true, we've got to tap back into our true compass and not allow for gaslighting or this just unethical behavior, unethical words to become the norm and to become okay. It's just not going to work. And we look at this from the 60s. We're now over 60 years from when Krishnamurti said this. No measure. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And he wasn't just talking about health of your physical body, right? And we've just seen it go exponentially worse. There is something we can do about it. We must start to lead ourselves first and shift and take specific action. Small, it can be small every moment that we start getting honest with ourselves and feeling everything instead of numbing out, whether with a pill or with social media or digital devices or any other action or device. You fully feel everything. You start to gain your power back and you start to be able to lead yourself, lead your own thoughts, lead your emotions, lead your physical body, lead your choices. Then you can lead your family, your words that come out of your mouth, lead the day-to-day actions that you do within your own household and for yourself with your habits, and lead then a business and maybe even perhaps a country that can change the world for the better and have a positive impact. That's what I hope that we can create and develop successful, positive leaders. I hope you'll join me in creating that and committing to leading stronger, longer. This inspires you, please like and subscribe, leave a comment or review, and I will see you in the next episode with an interview. Excited about this next coming interview of a leader who has made a profound impact in the world, and they are, in fact, coming off of the Paris Olympics. We'll be talking with someone who's getting awarded. I'll keep it confidential for right now, but please stay tuned. In the meantime, thank you for joining me on this episode. Remember, true leadership begins with leading ourselves first. Let's strive to be leaders who stand out for our integrity and ethics, both in our personal lives and our professional lives. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with others and leave a review. Until next time, keep leading stronger, longer.